Good to have you with us, and thanks for tuning in to Mirror Now. Welcome to another episode of Investor's Guide, where we help you understand all about saving, investing, and how to make your money work for you. And of course, you can get all of your personal finance-related questions directly answered by the experts. So whatever your question is, send them in. You can email your questions to us on investorsguidemrn@gmail.com. You can call us on 02267549546 or simply connect with us on Facebook or Twitter. All the details flashing on your screens. So without any delay, let's straight get to today's show. And joining me today is Dhirendra Kumar, CEO of Value Research Online, to talk about financial planning, why it's important, and also, of course, to answer all of your personal finance-related questions. Dhirendra, thanks so much for joining us on this edition of Investor's Guide. Dhirendra, before we get to the queries and all the other questions that are coming in, I wanted to first pick up on this issue of the Punjab and Maharashtra Cooperative Bank, which we've been seeing over the last several days, and how a lot of people have their money stuck in that bank. Of course, withdrawal limits have now been hiked a little bit, but still there are a lot of people who are suffering by not being able to access their money. So my question to you is, of course, this is a one-off situation, but is there anything that people can sort of do to safeguard themselves against this kind of thing, perhaps to ensure that they have their money split in different places? What would be your advice?
My advice is that, cooperative banks were created to make banking accessible in remote corners, and they were promoted on the basic premise that, they required lower capital. They have been given extra powers in terms of attaching properties or, assets against their lending, and they can auction it directly without going through the SARFAESI Act and all those cumbersome, time-consuming things. So, cooperative banks are reasonably okay. The real problem is that the management bandwidth and being small itself creates some of the, we don't expect banking to fail us when we need our money, and more so for the small guy for whom this cooperative bank is created for. So my simple advice is that if you have access to a public sector bank in your vicinity, never make your big deposits in a cooperative bank, even if it is at the cost of some inconvenience. And it is unlikely to be an inconvenience because, depositors, once they deposit the money or once they have it in any bank, which is modern, which has access to an ATM, so you rarely have to visit the bank anymore. So ask this question. And I think it's a matter of time. These community banks, cooperative banks in a small cities, unless it is able to modernize itself, make it accessible and make it, because you need the basic banking services. Some of these cooperative banks may not even be able to provide that unless you are in a very remote place, and this is the only way to actually keep, financialize your savings. Otherwise, they are best avoidable for your, small deposits and small transactions, because this is not the first time, and they are lightly regulated, understandably so. They have a social purpose, but, if you have your 50,000 and that is your lifetime savings, and it gets stuck, it could be devastating. Keep off.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, that exactly is what has happened to a lot of people. So, like Dhirendra suggesting, best to stay away from cooperative banks at this point in time. All right, let's get to all of our queries, and we've got a lot of them coming in. First
at all the time, not at this point of time.
At all times, yes, at all times. Better to stay away from cooperative banks. That's the advice, of course. Well, let's get straight to the queries coming in. First question comes to us from on Twitter. Julan Day has written in, who says, my financial goals are to accumulate 40 lakhs for my daughter's education in 10 years. And 2 crore for my retirement in 15 years. My current portfolio includes the following funds, which I've been investing in for the last 6 months. That includes Mirae Asset Blue Chip Fund, HDFC Small Cap Fund, SBI Small Cap Fund, Invesco Contra Fund, and Birla Sun Life Tax Relief Fund. And Dhirendra, if you've got the list, he's given out how much he's got in each fund. What would be your advice for him?
Oh, he looks like an excellent portfolio, and he has built it up thoughtfully. If you look at the amount of money getting invested in different funds, the Mirae Asset Emerging Blue Chip 15,000, and remaining 15,000 in 2 small cap and 1 contra fund. I think it's an excellent combination. Then the tax saving fund, 12,500, and he's availing that 1,50,000 rupees entitlement on account of ATC. And this all aggregates to about 42,500 rupees, which is, decent amount. If it is done for next 15 years, I think achieving his goal is not a problem. There are two, three things which he should keep in mind to achieve his goals. One is that be at it, be regular. You will have bad times, you will have good times, and don't try to, over-engineer it. Don't try to reduce your SIP or change your funds and things like that. There will be times when some of your funds will be doing exceedingly well and some of them will be doing poorly. And investing, following your path in those times is crucial. That's one. The other is that he will be able to achieve his goals. They are quite modest given his scale of investment, assuming that I'm hoping that he'll be able to increase his investment by 5 to 7% every year. Third is that I have one apprehension, I have one concern which I would like to sound him about, that he has estimated his his retirement needs and his particularly about his retirement needs, that he needs about 2 crore in 15 years time. He might well end up with 2 crore and realize that 2 crore is not enough. So we don't generally liberally compound our income requirement. Be little, err on the side of caution. Be little liberal with your estimates of your retirement income and the capital required for that.
All right, well, Julande, so there you have it, a very good portfolio, and keep at it, and importantly remember to increase the allocation amount as much as possible as the years go by. Shifting focus to our next query comes in from Keith Sequeira, who says, I saw your program and like the guidance given especially for first-time investors. Thank you, Keith. Glad it's useful to you. He says, I'm 48 and the only earning member in our family of 3. Daughter is 5 years old. I had invested in mutual funds but withdrew all of them 6 months ago. I have no other investments at all, but I have 10 lakhs to invest and want short-term dividends. I do not want to invest in the market. I don't mind the risk though. Well, Dhirendra, seems like, of course, he withdrew all his mutual fund investments 6 months ago. We don't know why, perhaps maybe some emergency, or he was not sure of the market conditions. But he obviously wants to get back into the mutual funds and start investing once more.
Yeah, I think he needs to be very clear about why he is investing, and he should definitely segregate, gain clarity on two things. One is that the money which he is likely to need anytime now, or in foreseeable future, in 2 years, 3 years time, and accordingly he should invest. All that money should never be invested in equity, and the money which he is unlikely to need for in the foreseeable future, and I assume that my assumption is 5 years and more, that money should always be invested in equity. But that doesn't mean that if he has 10 lakh rupees, he should invest in equity tomorrow. Money should never be invested in equity at one go. So these are three things if he follows. This translates into creating a savings hierarchy. The money that he would like his money to be handy all the time. He should define that money, whether it is 50,000, 1 lakh rupee, money which will not be exposed to any risk, will generate modest return, and he can take it out anytime. And it could be split between money lying in your locker, money lying in your savings bank account, and small amount of money in deposits or a liquid fund which is not exposed to any market. So emergency fund is the basic foundation. Maybe, and you are the best person to decide how much is good enough. Second is having a health insurance. With young children of this age, I think it's crucial, because any such requirement, any such emergency hospitalization requirement will completely derail your savings and investment plan. So that's number 2. Number 3, such crucial, such young children and a family to take care of, and you being the only family earning member, you need a sizable term insurance, and the premium for that is not much. Don't be unclear, be very clear that you have to buy a term plan. Term plan is something where you pay the money and you get a protection for your family. Nothing happens to you, you don't get anything back. Don't mix insurance and investment. Then the money which is left, all the money that you can save after spending on all this, creating your emergency fund, spending on your health insurance, spending on your term plan, that money should be invested. And the money which after that, the money which you need in the foreseeable future, that should be in your deposit or some debt fund. And rest of the money should be invested in equity. Investing in equity, never invest at one go. All the money that you can save right now comfortably for the long term, you should start investing every month. Of this 10 lakh rupee which you have, I would say that spread, if this is the long term money, if you are unlikely to need it, then spread this money over a time period which is half as much as it has taken to earn you. So if you have saved this money in 1.5 years time, maybe 9 months, do that. If it has taken 2 years for you to save this 10 lakh rupees, maybe next for 12 months spread your money in 1 or 2 multi-cap fund. That is it. And once you are investing in equity, make sure that you are not looking at those investments for a while. And after that, for 2 years, don't look at your investment, because if you look at them, you will be tempted to act, and it will deprive you of the great opportunity and the well-being, or the kind of accumulation that is possible.
Yes, absolutely. And that point, I think, can't be reiterated enough, that don't try and time the market, don't try and act based on the market conditions. Just keep, with discipline, keep putting in your money and investing into your mutual funds. Well, the next question comes from Hiren Padaria, who says, I've been investing in mutual funds via SIP for the last 5 years. The approach so far was high risk and investing in mid-cap, small-cap and large-cap equity funds. In the last 1 year, a huge part of my profits were hit, and the investment value and market value is the same after 5 years of investment. I invest 45,000 per month in SIP. What strategy do I need to adopt for maximum value from investment? Dhirendra, of course, everybody wants maximum value from investment, but your advice?
No, I'm quite concerned that, I understand that market has been turbulent. People, some investment values have gone down. But I'm quite surprised that, if somebody has been doing it for the last 5 years, he has also gone in negative. I think he needs to look at those numbers again. Possible that, he has invested in recent times much more than in the initial phases. A lot of people start with 1,000 rupee SIP, and after 2 years, they increase it to 10,000 rupee. So your investment is 10 times more, and only a very small part of the investment was done 5 years ago. So look at those things objectively. But at the same time, I would say that you are on the don't lose heart. If you don't need the money, if this is a long-term money and this is still a couple of years away, invest with confidence. Equities, they are very inconsistent. They are very erratic, and they turn out to be the best performing asset class. So you have to, and you can't do it if you are unless you are regular, and unless you have a long-term, unless you have a long-term investment time frame. If you don't have these two, then these funds are not for you. So carry on and review your investment, look at the performance, look at it objectively in terms of what amount of money was invested and how long ago.
And obviously, Dhirendra, I think choice of funds also, he hasn't given his choice of funds here, but obviously that would also be something that he might need to relook at as well.
Yes, he should look at his, he should review his investments. But at the same time, it requires objective evaluation. Many a times, we just look at the total investment value without looking at the context in terms of how much money was invested in which kind of fund, at what time period, how much money is at work during what time. So he should look at it. Maybe most investors actually couple their investments with SIP investment, with some booster investments in between. So it requires careful assessment. If it is really 5 years of regular investment of the constant amount, I'm really worried. He should revisit then definitely there is some problem with the kind of fund he has chosen.
Yes, absolutely. So, Hiren, I think first thing you need to do is look at your entire portfolio and just assess everything again. And if you like, you can send us your the mutual funds that you have invested in, and we'll get it reviewed here on the show as well. All right, Dhirendra, for the next few queries, I'm going to club them all together because they're more or less on the same lines, and they're all talking about, they're all talking about first-time investors, what they need to do, and how they should go about starting their investment. So this question comes from Sandesh Srinivas, who says, I want to invest 2 lakhs. How should I invest? Then we've got a question from Valerian Crasto, who says, I have 5 lakhs to invest. I have no knowledge about investing. How should I start? We've also got a question from Jerry Basil, who says, I have 3 lakhs. How do I start investing? And Rishi Shinde says, I have just graduated, started earning a small amount. Investment is not feasible because of the amount that I earn. What can I do? I'm very ambitious. Well, Dhirendra, so essentially, more or less, all of these questions are on the same lines. I thought it would be a good time to sort of go back to the very basics.
No, not the last one.
Not the last one. All right, we'll leave that out and go back to that a little later. But the first few questions, go back to the very basics.
Yep.
Talk about, the importance of financial planning. How does one start? What is the first step to take? Why are financial goals important that we keep stressing on? So why don't you take over?
Yes, I would like to, deal with the last question first, that, he's
Sure.
very ambitious, but he has no money to save. So your ambition will not be fulfilled if it is financial one. So work hard, earn more, or if you can't really work hard, earn more, then somehow start saving by reducing your expenses. These are the only ways of doing it, earn more or spend less if you can't earn more. And that's crucial thing to meet any of your ambition. Next comes, somebody who wants to invest 2 lakh, 3 lakh or 5 lakh. As I was telling in the context of, while answering the previous question, that there is a hierarchy of your investment plan and every individual should follow it. Maybe I will just elaborate on it a little more, which is start with your emergency fund, the money that you want it to be handy all the time. So whether it be 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, 5,000 could be a good emergency fund for a student, or with no dependents, a bachelor, depends. So do your own assessment, have 5, 10, 20,000 rupees handy. Then comes, if you have your health insurance, because all your savings and investment plan will go haywire if you are unwell and need to be hospitalized and any treatment. So these are basics. Once you have the health insurance, emergency fund, if you have financial dependence, definitely buy an insurance. If you don't have financial dependence, don't buy an insurance, because something happens to you, people will be sad, but they will not be stuck financially. And insurance should not be looked upon as an avenue to generate return or to earn money. It is buying protection for your family just in case you're not around, and to cover up for the financial gap that might be essential for their needs. So that's the way to look at term insurance. At a young age, it comes at a very low premium, and at a young age, you also need it very badly, because that is also the time when you have absolutely no financial worth. You are getting started, accumulating your savings, you have no net worth, and your family is extremely vulnerable if it is financially dependent. Then comes investment. And investment, somebody getting started, a very simple approach which everybody should follow. If you have never invested in a market-linked investment, consider a balanced fund. If you are not a taxpayer, and if you are a taxpayer, if you are likely to pay taxes, then the tax law rule is that up to 1.5 lakh rupees investment in a tax saving fund will be deducted from your income for computing taxes. So depending on whether you are a taxpayer or not, you should start either with a balanced fund or with a tax saving fund, and never invest at one go. Most people earn their salaries every month, and they pay their car EMIs car installments every month, or home loan EMI. But when it comes to investing, we see in the questions itself that somebody has accumulated 2 lakh, 3 lakh or 5 lakh to invest. You don't have to accumulate to invest. It should be a habit. It should be a methodical thing. It should be very much aligned with your income pattern. So start doing your SIP either in a balanced fund if you're not a taxpayer, or a tax saving fund, and don't have more than one to begin with for your first 3 years. And if you continue doing it, rest of the things will all be automatically taken care of. So do these 4 broad steps investment and followed by investment in a balanced fund or a tax saving fund, depending on your situation.
Right. So, Dhirendra, just to sort of back up a little bit, when we talk about the emergency fund or when we talk about the life insurance term plan that one needs to have, what would be the sort of thumb rules that one should follow in terms of how much should be kept aside in the emergency fund? How much life insurance does one need? Does that change with the age that you're actually beginning your entire investment journey?
Yeah, there are a lot of thumb rules floating around, but I don't see a basis of that. Everybody is intelligent enough to understand what is, it requires, none of the thumb rules actually work and don't believe in them. I'll tell you why. The emergency fund requirement is entirely a function of if you have young children, if you have elderly parents with you, your emergency, and if they're unwell, if their state of health is something which requires attention, your scale of emergency fund will be different.
Yes.
If you are living as a bachelor, you are a healthy person, then your emergency fund should be, and if you are in a stable job, your need for emergency fund could be different. If you are in a volatile job where there are irregular income, then you need to really provide for not having a job for next 6 months or 1 year or whatever. So the scale of emergency fund varies depending on your circumstances. Never follow a thumb rule. Likewise, there is a thumb rule which is prevalent for life insurance, that 8 years of your annual income should be minimum. No, this also has no basis. Depends. If you have young children, very young children whose long education has to be met, education needs are to be met, or if you don't have a house, it's a completely different thing. It depends on how many financial dependents you have in your family. So don't believe in those thumb rules. Sit with a small piece of paper. Do your assessment in terms of how much income can actually support your family if you're not around, and be little liberal with your estimates, and then go about doing the shopping. Likewise for the emergency fund. An emergency fund should be actually a productive asset, because you can keep some money which is idle lying in your locker, which earns nothing, but that is handy if just in case you have to run to a nursing home middle of the night. But it's a different story. Rest of the money can be working. It should be lying in your savings bank account, which will earn 4 to 6%. Then rest of the money can lie in a liquid fund, which can be accessible at 6 hours notice. Next day morning you will have it, and up to 50,000 rupee you can have it almost instantaneously. So depends. Don't go by thumb rules.
Right. Right, and Dhirendra, one more question, and again, this is basis a lot of questions that we've been getting, where people simply say that I want to invest for the long term. There's no definition of why they want to invest, what is the goal. So I think some more emphasis on the importance of financial goals and how it sort of helps you maintain that discipline towards investing for that particular goal.
No, one is that, if you have actually met your goals, because if somebody is very diligent at a very early stage, it could be a very legitimate, goal that you just want to grow your money for the long run. Because when I think of the tangible goals, if you have a home and if you have provided enough for your child's education, if you have children, and if you have provided enough for your retirement, and having a home actually reduces the need for, a large income requirement in your retirement. So, after that, it is only optimizing or maximizing your return for the long term, so that you can leave a larger state for your successors. So in that sense, once you have met your 2-3 tangible goals, and if you are living a debt-free life, it's good enough. It can be a tangible goal, maximizing return, and then investing for the long run is actually, it helps you manage your temperament. You should define the time frame. A lot of time, people think that they're investing for the long term, but the long term definition is that he's going to take a delivery, or he's going to invest for 1.5 years. That is not long term. Long term money, I look at long term money in 2-3 ways. One is that I have a very blunt rule that any money which you need in next 5 years is not long term, for a non-negotiable goal. So some people might think that so 5 years and more, that's one. measurable one, quantitative. Second is the money which you don't need in the foreseeable future is the only long-term is the definition of the long-term. And the third one is that, if you are investing, and what is the time in the equity market, what is the time period in which you are able to do, you are able to witness a full market cycle, a down year and a down cycle and an up cycle.
Right.
And for that, I think 5 to 6 years is the time frame where one is able to go through a full market cycle, which is long term.
All right. We've got a caller on the phone line, Gunjan Patel from Vadodara. Hi, Gunjan. Thanks for calling in. Go ahead. What's your question?
Yeah, my question is, looking at the present scenario, if I want to invest in mutual funds, which mutual funds are better? Is it the equity-based or the arbitrage one or the liquid fund or the dividend-based fund? I am talking in terms of 5 years down the line.
Do you want to invest for a period of 5 years?
Yeah, at least.
All right. All right. Dhirendra, what would be your advice?
Have you ever invested before?
No.
I would like to know, have you ever invested in any market-linked investment before?
Yeah, I have invested in mutual funds. I do have liquid funds with me right now.
No, have you ever invested in equity funds of any kind?
No, not really.
Have you experienced the ups and downs of the market? Okay. For somebody like you who is going to get started, one is that don't invest any lump sum money. Even if you have lump sum money, put that money in a liquid fund and spread it over a time period, over at least 12 months time period. That's one. Start with a balanced fund. Somebody who has not experienced the equity market should never invest in an all equity fund and never invest at one go. So choose one good balanced fund and invest a defined amount of money every month over the next 5 years.
All right. Well, Gunjan, hope that answers the question and you've got what you were actually looking for. But I'm afraid we are completely out of time. Dhirendra, thank you so much for joining us with answering all of those questions and helping all our first-time investors get started on their investment journey. Well, on that note, time to wrap up this edition of Investors Guide. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode. Until then, keep sending us all of your questions, and all the questions we couldn't take today, I promise you we'll take them next time. Until then, happy investing.